All right, here we go. Welcome everyone to Roundy's Rants, Raves, and Reviews. I am Tanya Roundy, your host today, and I am so excited to have with me a new author and hopefully new friend who has just come out with a book, and so excited to share one with you. Juan, will you tell us about yourself and what you've been doing?
Okay, so my name is Juan Pablo Panchano. I'm originally from Cali, Colombia. Grew up in New York. Well, so my background's been in film production.
Mhm.
Been working on that, but currently I work as an audiologist, but I still do some film and stuff. But like you said, I have my first book that just came out, almost done with my second book. But yeah, that's what I spend most of my time doing right now is writing. Being I've been writing for a while. I just never turn anything into a book
I
per
was gonna
se.
say, if you've been doing filmmaking, you've been writing
Mhm.
in a lot of
Yes,
different ways before that.
exactly.
Very good. So did you live a time in Colombia before you
Yes.
moved here? And
Oh yeah.
tell me about
Yeah.
that journey, because I know that's integral to your book, is this
Yeah, that's
journey.
the introduction.
Yeah,
But yeah,
right.
so
Tell
yeah,
me.
I was in Colombia until I was 12. And that's when my parents settled in New Jersey, actually. But yeah, I was in Colombia till I was 12, but I got to live all the chaos. It was only like a year after I came to the US when things shifted through the death of Pablo Escobar, who was the one who was causing a lot of the chaos at that time during the late 70s, 80s, early 90s.
So your parents came to escape that, or what was their intention of coming to
No,
the
well,
US?
my dad, he was in the international business,
Oh,
not drugs.
different kind of
I just wanted to
international
make
business.
that clear. But eventually, he settled in the States, and then my mom followed, and then everybody else. But in fact, it's interesting because I'm one of seven kids,
Mhm.
and I was the only one that was not born in the United States.
Oh.
So I was made in a vacation or something. I don't know.
I love that.
But yeah, so I was in Colombia till I was 12, and everybody stayed here. I had siblings older than me that were already going to school here, and they lived here. Yeah, so eventually this was the place to be. Everybody wanted to come to the
Everybody
United
still wants to
States.
come.
Still, yeah. Even when things are not as bright as they used to be,
Mm.
there's still that spirit that's drawing people here.
And
Mm.
that's very true, that spirit. And we'll talk about that too. So you've been a filmmaker. Tell me about that little bit journey. What were you doing with filmmaking? What was your kind of journey through that?
I don't know. Ever since I was a little kid, the United States had a lot to do with that, as I would watch TV and stuff and the movies and everything. Like I had these just dreams, and by my personality is very creative. I'm a Gemini. We tend to be very creative, and
Yes.
a lot of things goes on in my head. Music wise, I also write music and stuff like that. But anyway, so I got into film later on. I actually wanted to become a lawyer. I didn't want to practice law, but I wanted to be a judge. That was my ultimate goal.
Right.
But I didn't get the support that I needed. Anyway, so I ended up going into film, and I got involved in different projects. I started as a camera person, freelancing and so on. But then I made it to a producer, and I got involved with a Canadian company that's no longer in business, but through them, we did a lot of contracting work. We worked on like Spider-Man. We worked on Law and Order, some films with like Nicolas Cage. We also participated in different events, venues that Johnny Depp, Alice Cooper put together a few years ago. Anyways, just whatever they needed someone to fill in and take over whatever projects. So we did everything from commercials to short films, editing, whatever, anything that, so I was in charge of overlooking the work. Yeah.
And say living out in New York and Jersey area and stuff like that, let's say Law and Order all over the place. I
Yeah,
know.
but that was here in Arizona, actually. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, I still used to come to our studio constantly because
Right.
he lives nearby. He's in Chandler. And
Okay.
so and that's one of the reasons why we got hired, because he lived here. And
Uh-huh.
so whenever he would mess up his lines, we would bring them in to fill in, and then we'll send them back to the editors and
Right.
they'll put them in. So a lot of the stuff, our post production,
That's
in order. Yeah.
very
Because he didn't care much about
cool.
lines, And so I want to make
It's a
sure this
thing.
is, yeah,
Well, that's an incredible journey to be able to go from wanting to be a lawyer judge of being a judge. Lawyer's definitely a path on
yeah.
that to filmmaking and storytelling and music writing and that creativity, finding a way into those different paths. Who influenced you the most as either a filmmaker or who were you reading and who were you influenced by in that creativity when you were younger and even now?
Well, mostly TV, the movies, MacGyver, the 18
Kyber, oh my gosh.
growing
Ah,
up.
such a good show.
He-Man, you name it. Back in the 80s, we saw the American or
Mhm.
the United States blossom in such a way that it became such an influence for people outside of the US. And as a little child, just looking at, just being exposed to that, and my nature just went wild about dreaming and creating and so on. And so, yeah, that just became a given once I came to the United States and felt that I was able to do that and just run with it. There were no limits. There is no such thing as a sky when it comes to the United States. A lot of people say the sky is the limit. No, there's no limit. It goes beyond into space, far and beyond. And that's kind of what my book touches into, is the spirit that is eternal, that has no limits, to anyone that wants to dream and embrace the God-given nature of us to create and to grow and become better than we've ever been.
Absolutely. Well, that's a perfect segue into why writing this book. What led you to want to write about this subject of your Latino background, but becoming an American by choice and what that means to you?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't, I never really wrote anything because I wanted to write a book. But as you can tell in my book, it's basically organized by segments.
Mhm.
The chapters aren't very long, but they're all divided into segments. And that's what I started writing throughout the years. And it never meant for a book. I actually put together a presentation, and it
Mhm.
was called Rules of Freedom. I started doing like little presentations here and there, and I started talking a lot of the principles that are in my book, like knowledge and unity, liberty, and so on. Always ending on on God being the source of freedom. So that's how I started. But as I started putting things together and going back and trying to add and organize my presentation, all of a sudden a title came. And I'm sure, I have no doubt it was a God given title, just simple as it is, Latino by birth, American by choice. Because I wasn't talking about geography. I wasn't talking about citizenships. I wasn't talking about being in the United States. I was talking about a spirit that drove the people that first that took part in the foundation of the United States. So anyway, so that's how I started getting into the idea of putting a book together, which I had no idea about really, but I just started letting the Lord kind of guide me through the process, and things just fell together. And then I got connected with a good friend of mine, Kim Cobbler, that
Mhm.
you've been in touch with. And she had been such a support in that process. She's like, yeah, let's work, let's set some goals and let's make this happen. And yeah, through her influence and her support, like, it became a book. It's not that big, but I was able to put everything that I wanted to say within those few chapters in a very precise way. I wanted to keep writing. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot more to say, lot, a lot more. I just kept it simple and direct. So yeah,
That is so beautiful. We were talking just before this that I taught 11th grade American literature for a long time of my career here, and I love American history, and I love they go together. And I love the way you put that spirit of American. It's not just an United States thing, but it's
Hmm.
this whole
Well,
concept of what we can become and the mindset of those
yeah.
founding fathers and the people who came here and settled. That mindset of growing and accomplishing and doing within that. As I was going through your chapters, headings, and stuff like this, you started with this idea of that spirit. And two, what in particular, like, did you see when you were writing this or and researching this about the spirit of that founding fathers of coming to this nation? What was that spirit that you found in there?
Well, I think as I contemplated being in Colombia and everything that I went through, everything that I experienced and saw, all the chaos and everything, and then coming to the United States and seeing life being more organized, feeling more safe, and so on. And then later becoming a Christian, getting to know God in a very personal way, I realized that spirit of America that I felt as a child and the spirit of God are one and the same. It's just that the world embraced it as the spirit of America. And it didn't even come from people from the United States or even in the Americas. It came from people outside because when they would visit America, and to them, it wasn't the United States, it was the continent of
Mhm,
America, the new world. And so when they came here, but the only country that was really progressing and growing was the United States. And then they started associating that growth and that prosperity with a very special spirit that later became the spirit of America. But as a Christian, as someone that understands more about God and our relationship with Him and His plan in our lives, I know that is in reality the Spirit of God that allows us to grow if we allowed ourselves to connect to it. And that's what made the difference with the colonies
mm,
because they were the ones that really had a vision and they really wanted to detach themselves from the old. And that's what God does. God only works with us if we are determined to let go of everything.
mhm,
And in the Savior, in the scriptures, he talks about that new wine cannot be poured in old wineskin
mhm,
because the wine expands and then the wineskin will burst. And so with God, it's the same. If we hold on to our old ways, which happened with Latin America, that's why they didn't become a United States. That's why none of those nations became a United States. The invitation was for everybody in the Americas to embrace this spirit, but only people within the colonies were willing to let go of the old. And therefore, God was able to expand, was able to put new wine, new freedom, a new perspective, a new way of thinking, a new way of experiencing liberty. Like in my book, I mentioned that the United States didn't invent the knowledge, but it liberated it.
mhm,
You know what I mean?
mhm,
Because they were willing, these early founders, they were willing to let go and let God. For them, there was no king but God. And that's what made all the difference. And therefore, they were guided by that spirit, the spirit of God, which we now embrace as the spirit of America. But it is one and the same. And that's what I talk about. Being an American is not about citizenship, it's about embracing a call through the spirit of God to use our liberty, our agency. And that's, I talk about that in my book. Liberty and freedom are not the same. Liberty is actually agency. And that determines if we are free or we are slaves. God is inviting us to be free, but it can only happen as we let go of the old and embrace what He has in store for us. And He always has the means for us to expand and to grow. And He does it through certain principles that we need to apply. And then again, there's no limit, there's no sky.
'cause God can take us wherever He wants us to go on that, that's for sure.
Exactly. And we
I
know He goes beyond this world.
oh, very much so, right? I love
Mhm,
this idea of when you to go back to just a second, that idea of the knowledge being able to expand and grow because they were willing to open to it. And I just was thinking, and I've talked about this with my students in the past too, is like when you think of when the Americas were discovered or found by those
mhm,
coming from the outside to and the advancements in knowledge and the expansion of knowledge and how much it flooded thousands of years, but yet in the last two, 300 years, how much advancements of knowledge have been made and how much open knowledge going to
mhm.
space,
Yeah.
computer technology, the advancements in technology and knowledge and understanding has just been overwhelming if you
Yes.
consider how much in a short span of time that is compared to all the time before that.
Exactly.
It's so incredible to think about that light of God opening that to us and stuff too. I
Yeah,
really
but
will.
God requires a willing mind. God, yeah, he needs that in order to work with us. He's limited by our willingness.
Yeah,
We are the
that
ones
is
that put the limits to what God can do in our lives. And so when he came to the colonies and the people that came from Europe, they were hungry. They were hungry for an intimate relationship with God.
true.
That was their main drive. And God knew that, and God recognized that, and God rewarded them for that.
Mhm,
Versus people in the rest of the Americas who still wanted to be attached to their king. And definitely in Colombia, we had, and in my book, I mentioned Simon Bolivar. He was our liberator. He was one of a few founding fathers in Latin
mhm,
America. And they worked really hard. But little by little, as they were trying to unite the lands, they dissolved because they didn't want to let go of the old. They stayed faithful to their king, not God, but the earthly king and their popes and their religions and all these things that God was wanting to let people to let go, which the colonies did. And look what we have, the
mhm.
United States of America. Obviously, things aren't as they used to be, but there's still great hope for that. And
Yes.
we want the United States to continue to be that pillar and that shining city on the hill because he has shown the way, he has shown the path. And it is. We see a lot of things changing in the continent as a whole because there's a lot of things awakening, a lot of people awakening, and that spirit of America is firing up.
It is, and I have hope for that too. I
Mhm,
really love that idea that you talked about with liberty being agency.
mhm,
And so many people don't really connect those two
mhm.
things. How did you come up with that idea of liberty and agency being this
A lot of
idea?
people ask that question, like, how do you come up with this? How do you come up with that? I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't. I
Uh-huh.
simply was willing to let God do his thing. I was willing to let go of anything that had been said before
Hmm.
and just simply be an open book and a vessel to let God work through me. And a lot of things came very clear
Hmm.
as I was determined to seek his guidance because I knew I had to write something. Just by the title he gave me, Latino by Birth, American by Choice, what does that mean? I didn't even understood what that meant, but little by little. And then, yeah, and then quotes like John Adams, who would say, liberty can get in the way of liberty.
Hmm.
Agency can get in the way of somebody else's agency. You know what I mean? And then I go into saying liberty determines freedom. So then he clicked on me. I'm like, oh, okay, agency. If
Hmm.
we're talking, if we're using religious terms, right?
Hmm.
And that's what the founding fathers, they knew that. And they saw it very clear in their mind. And that's what, to me, it causes great love and great appreciation and respect for these people. And not just the ones that are famous,
Right.
those others that history has no record of. They understood. They were endowed by that spirit that gave them understanding and the courage to put that into place as the right for everybody, not coming from men, but from God. the ability and the right for us to choose for ourselves, whether to keep free or to lose it. We're
Right.
free to do that. We're free to give it up if we want. But an understanding of that is what makes a difference, because then we can decide how are we going to use it. Are we going to use it for our own good and for the benefit of our society? Or are we going to misuse it and create chaos, which is what we see today? Because liberty is not the good use of our liberty is not independent from basic moral principles. It
Mhm.
will not. That's why John Adams said the Constitution of the United States was meant for a religious, for a, what was the quote? Come on, help me here.
God-fearing people. Yeah, it was for those who would believe in God and have faith
Yeah.
in him. Yeah.
Well, for our religious, and I can't remember. Oh gosh.
I know it's like the exact words are, but yes, that
Hmm.
idea that he's like that the Constitution was meant for people who would,
For
yeah,
a religious people. And
yeah,
to me, he was talking about two separate groups: the religious people that contribute, to God and a creator and so on. They have a particular faith. But then those people that have just basic moral values, maybe through a philosophy, maybe they don't believe in God, but they have a sense, which we all do, because we are spiritual beings having a moral experience. We have that sense within us
right,
that tells us what is right and wrong. And even if people claim not to believe in God, there's some people that still live by a philosophy that leads them to respect others, to be honest, respect others, have charity, and take responsibility when they do wrong. And unless we consider those things, liberty liberty is gonna get in the way of liberty,
mhm,
and therefore, let alone what's gonna happen to freedom, we're not gonna have it.
right. And we see that in places where people have given up that liberty and made those things and
Yeah.
what's happened to
Hmm.
their countries. But it's also a very individual thing, I think, too, what we're doing for ourselves and the choices we make for ourselves and the
Hmm.
consequences and the liberty we have and the freedom we have in our own lives, even
Exactly.
individually, is not even just country on this
Yeah,
wide scale, but it's very
and we
individual too.
know that no individual choice is private.
Hmm.
It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Our individual, how we are in private, is going to get out there. That's how we're going to treat our children, and then that's how our children are going to treat their children, and so on. And that's how society
Hmm.
becomes what we chose as an individual. So no choice is really private.
Right.
And yeah, yeah.
Very, oh my goodness. I love the name of one of your chapters really caught my attention because it's my favorite speech to teach. Give me liberty or give me death.
Hmm.
And I think that goes right along with what we were just talking about because what does that lead to, either spiritually or as a country, when we either have that liberty and we have that, or it's not a lack of freedom, it's really leads to either spiritual death or physical or death of a country
Hmm.
when it comes to that. Tell us a little bit about that chapter and what you're talking about in giving liberty and death and that idea there as you explore that
Yeah,
idea.
like I said, and it's Thomas Jefferson who said that the same God who gave us life gave us liberty at the same time.
Hmm.
It's all about liberty. It's all about agency. God will never force us to do anything, not even to save us from ourselves.
Hmm.
And it's because it is through liberty and the understanding of it that we can expand, that we are able to explore our existence here. But we need to understand, that's why my first chapter is about knowledge.
Hmm.
Without knowledge, without an understanding of certain principles, we're not going to know how to appreciate our liberty.
Hmm.
And not only we're going to cause harm to ourselves, but to the rest of the people around us, our children, our family, friends, whatever. So give me liberty or give me death. Basically, allow me the understanding, because this is where it comes from. Back in the old world, people were only allowed to know certain things.
Hmm.
Like people will die if they rebelled. But we understand that without being allowed to choose for ourselves and choose our freedoms and so on, there's really no life. So give me liberty or give me death because life is pointless without being able to choose for ourselves. And that's what gave birth to the American Revolution
Mhm.
because people were able to be themselves. Back in Europe, back in the old world, exploring, being curious about things was a sin.
Mhm.
Over here became a celebration.
Mhm.
And so the strings were broken. People can now think for themselves and accomplish whatever they wanted to be. Make mistakes. Again, there was no limit, and that's why God was able to work with the people because they were willing to embrace that liberty and take their own responsibilities. They didn't need other human beings controlling their lives, but God.
What do you hope people will get from your book and understand about themselves and the mindset or what they can do?
The biggest thing is to appreciate our moral existence. We're not here to stay. We're just passing through. We need to live every day just with gratitude in our hearts to even just wake up in the morning and have the opportunity to be in this world, to be the best influence we can be. And we cannot do that unless we understand that we have to live by certain principles, just basic principle, basic respect towards others. It's not about politics. This is not about your own team or whatever. This is about just being kind and helping one another in this process of mortality. And we cannot really accomplish our mission here on earth independent from God, independent from the influence of His Spirit. It's not going to happen. You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm hoping that people can just be grateful for what we have been given, for the example that we have been given through the United States, through these people that embraced this opportunity to grow, this opportunity to that they received by having courage to give up their comfort of the old world. They didn't know, they couldn't see what was going to happen. They put all the cards on the table and they were willing to do that. All they had was trust in this greater power. And that great God saw them through and they discovered that and the founding fathers mentioned this a lot, is this could not have been possible without the assistance of providence, without the assistance of God and the influence that He was through the whole process of the revolution, the Civil War, and everything that has happened, everything that has everything that has come out of these great people has been nothing less than the inspiration of God because of a people being willing to let go of the old and allow God to expand within them. And the founding fathers showed us that. And they put it all into place, how it's going to work out. If we don't do it the way that it needs to be done, it's not going to work. And that's why we have struggled quite a bit for many decades. So hopefully we are awakened. And there is an awakening. I see it.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
There is an awakening. It's definitely happening in Latin America, which I'm grateful for and excited about. And so there's so much more. I could have written a lot more into this book.
Yeah.
I could have gone into some prophecies and things like that that
Mhm.
I have experienced myself. But we can't, that doesn't matter without going back to the basics.
Mhm.
In my book, I mentioned we no longer need a declaration of independence. We need a declaration of dependence back to God,
Mhm.
back to basic principle, if we are to be prepared for the great things that are coming, not just in the United States, but in the continent of the Americas. And we want to be we want to be on the right side when those things happen. And so my book is basically leading in that preparation for that greatness. And who knows, I might write a second book talking more about some of these things I just mentioned, the prophecies and so on. But my main message, I think, has been just let's awaken that wonderful spirit that created the greatest nation in the world and that can expand to the rest of the Americas, but also the world.
And we see it happening throughout the world. We see pockets of it and where that
Hmm.
influence is going and coming, and an awakening happening in so many other places, I think,
Yeah.
too. And I definitely see it happening in the Americas overall as well,
Hmm.
too. And it's exciting to see God's hand working to bring people together as well as to Him in all of this. It's incredible. And I love that your book is a part of this to help us come together with that and doing. Where can we get your book? Where can we find it? Where can we follow you and be part of this
Hmm.
journey with you?
Okay, so I have currently have my website, Latino by Birth, AmericanByChoice.com. You can buy the book through there, but it would what it does is just a link that takes you to Amazon.
Mhm.
So that's where you can find it. But again, I'm just barely starting this. So yeah, you have an option to put in your emails or whatnot, because I'm going to be working on a video pretty soon called Pick Up Your Piece. We all fit together, where it promotes unity among us. And so whoever ends up being part of this or like sending their emails and so on, I would invite to be part of the video because we want to make it a community. We want to make it a family filled with the American spirit, filled with basically love and kindness towards all. That's basically what the message is. Awakening the spirit of love, awakening the spirit of kindness, awakening the spirit of respect for all, regardless of our differences, di- regardless of our different ways of our different opinions and so on. We can still be brothers and sisters,
That's
even with our differences. But people are important. People are important, more important than some opinions. So yeah, that's where
always
you can
more
find the
important.
book. Amazon.com under my name, Juan Panchano, or Latino by Birth, American by Choice. And that's it.
I love that. I love that you're going to expand on this and create that. When you get that going, I would love if you come back and we could talk about that too, because that'll be so cool as you
Yeah.
get going with that whole idea. I love that concept of the puzzle pieces, like all being different shapes, but yet we all fit
Mhm.
together, and we have to fit together
Yeah,
in certain ways for it to create the picture too. We can't all be.
exactly. We are all part of the same family.
Hmm.
We are all in this together.
Hmm.
You know, we waste so much time on fighting arguments over things, no differences that really won't matter at the end. We're going through all these wars, all these things that are taking place, distracting us from really growing in love and preparing ourselves, our families, our communities, our nation for this amazing thing that's coming. There's a great thing coming, but everything that is happening is distracting us from that preparation, and we're going to regret it. So the whole thing with the book is like, come on,
Get
it's not
going.
about politics, it's not about religion, it's about love and respect for one another.
That's the spirit of America. I love that.
That's
So
right. That's the spirit of the new world. Because in the old world, there was chaos. But God said, hey, let's start a new thing here.
he's
And
always
that's
telling us
why,
to do that.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. And in my book, I mentioned that my last chapter is called The Author for Freedom. And it's about relationship with God and his willingness to give us opportunities to get on his side and allow him to expand his purpose in our lives because he knows our future, our individual future, also our collective future. And he wants us to embrace that and not miss it.
True. I love that idea of it being so personal with us too. That
Hmm.
new world, that new mentality is also an individual thing for each of us.
Yes.
For God to work within us that way too. Such a powerful invitation. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with today? A last message, something that you feel important that we could walk away from today as we go forward?
Well, we live in a world that right now there's a lot of division. There's a lot of hurt. And so the only source of true healing and the only source of true growth is found in our intimate relationship with God. He is the author of our freedom. He is the author of everything that we really want in our lives that is good. And so in my book, I talk about the miracles. I don't go too deep into it, but I do mention all the miracles and everything that took place to the founding of this great nation. God can do that in your life. I talk about the mountains that were moved by the founders or through the founders because they trusted this wonderful God. He can do the same in your life. Whatever your struggles are, put your trust in that God that is that whose purpose is to give you freedom. Freedom from your own bad habits, freedom from your illnesses, even physical, emotional, whatever those things are. The same miracle, the same God of miracles is the same God of miracles for our individual lives if we trust Him, if we get to know Him, if we get to rely on Him, if we go back to Him. Nothing is going to heal the nation or heal us as individuals, our families, our communities. Then going back to God, God is the source. So I just want to leave that out. The whole purpose of the book is that we're given this amazing life, this amazing way of life through the United States that doesn't go without living certain way. And he always, and so I just gave that as an example. But the whole point of the book is there is a God, and we, if we want to be happy, we want to have peace, and want to have order and everything in our lives, we need to be with Him as an individual, as a community, as a family, as a nation. It doesn't matter. If God is not the source of everything that we do, we're always going to end up in chaos.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Juan, for being with me today. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I look forward to what your book and your message does to help light this world and bring peace and hope to so many people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Everyone, go check out and buy Juan's book, be a part of his journey, join in the way that we can change the world and be part of the puzzle pieces together. Sign up for his newsletter so you can be part of that as well. And know that you're loved. And check us out next time on Roundy's Rants, Raves, and